I'm pretty sure everyone who clicked on this video knows about Slender Man, right? There was this game that everyone played, then there was this game that no one played, and then there was a movie that, well, let's just forget that ever happened. The original Slender game instantly took over the internet when it was released in 2012 and became a giant hit. Now, even though fan games and clones were nothing new even at the time, this was really the first time a game became so popular that so many other games were created attempting to mimic its gameplay.
What the hell? Ah! What the fuck? SpongeBob!
So many, in fact, that by the time Slender the Arrival released, a greatly expanded game about Slender Man made by the same creators as the 8 Pages, which released only 9 months after the original game, was pretty much despised before it even released.
Why are you gay?
That's right, in only 9 months' time there were so many Slender Man fan games and clones that people were completely sick of Slender Man altogether.
Do me a favor, please. Get out of here.
And much like Slender Man himself, no one really seems to talk about these games anymore. There is, however, one exception to this rule. A game made by ZeoWorks that started out as a simple clone, but eventually became its own full-fledged series with its own lore and managed to create an entire fanbase of its own. That game being Slendytubbies. What is it with the internet always turning completely innocent things into something twisted? Somehow makes perfect sense too, because this show is freaky as hell. I've never actually played any of the games though.
What?
So today I'm gonna play through all 3 mainline Slendytubby games and see if they're as good as people say they are. And yes, I said mainline, because there are spin-offs and side modes as well, such as Slendytubbies 2D and a multiplayer mode that turns the game into a first-person shooter. But I'll only stick to the 3 mainline games for now, as this video is already long enough as it is. So with that said,
let's get right into
Slendytubbies 1. On the main menu, I was greeted with the most cursed music I've heard in a while, and Tinky Winky asserting his dominance by T-posing inks to a fire and a tubby custard. I clicked single player and oh my god, Poe! That is just horrible. Alright, well, let's try not to get too hung up about this. We get to choose between 3 modes: Scary, which takes place during the day, Scarier, which takes place at dusk, and Scariest, which, you guessed it, takes place at night. As the toughest kid on the block, I have a reputation to uphold, so naturally I picked the scariest option. I'm coming for you, Poe. Hang in there. So we spawn in, and damn, that is the spookiest font I have ever seen. So as the name Slendytubbies would suggest, it plays pretty much exactly like Slender the 8 Pages. But instead of pages, you collect custards. And instead of Slender Man chasing you, it's Tinky Winky. The first thing I noticed while playing is that you can actually see the sky grid.
Oh my god, beautiful!
In fact, you can see it on the main menu as well.
The game is broken!
So for the most part, this map is just a huge generic forest with not much in it, except for those weird showerhead looking things from the show and a few landmarks. The first thing I came across was this beach on which I found Lala. She looked pretty lifeless to me, but I flashed my light and poked her a couple times just to make sure. So after confirming that she was indeed deceased, I did what any sensible person would do. I took a good look around to make sure no one was there, jumped on her head, teabagged the absolute shit out of her, took her custard, and bounced. Every now and then these images pop up on screen with the distortion sound, which are basically just cheap little jump scares. After some more walking around, I came across the Tubby Dome. I took the slide in and found my boy Nunu doing the sickest donuts I've ever seen. The first thing that came to my mind was, can I ride him? And much to my surprise, you could. Best game ever, 10 out of 10. Eventually, however, Nunu had enough of my shit and yeeted me across the room. You also might have noticed Dipsy, who seems to have had a nasty fall and hit his head on the slide. Very unfortunate. I saw this open window and wondered if I could jump through it. I could, but by doing so I landed out of bounds. Awesome. So what now? Wait, is that...
Oh my goodness!
Can I help you with anything? Like, can I do something for you, or...
What do you want?
Tinky Winky seemed to have lost his manners, as he was not responding to anything I asked him. So I eventually decided to make a run for it. He then magically seemed to have gotten his voice back, but instead of just answering my questions, he started to scream at me, which startled me, so I jumped back in the window. He then followed me back into the house, where he proceeded to just stand there.
He's just standing there, menacingly!
I wanted to see if I could slip by him if I stayed in the middle of these 2 walls, but then... Yeah, this game is broken as hell. I still hadn't found Poe, however, and I was determined to find him. So I started a new game and went looking for her. So I searched, and I searched, and I searched, and then... Woo! There she is! Unfortunately though, she was way beyond saving. So yeah, you don't mind if I take this, right? Well, it was nice hanging out. See ya. I couldn't even take 10 steps until Stinky Winky came running towards me from the darkness of the night. Oh my god, this scream, man. You know what, just catch me. Thank you. Although the concept for this game is pretty funny, it is kinda hard to take seriously and not something you'd play for more than 2 or 3 times, as there's just not that much to it. The map is way too big, and although there are a few landmarks, half of the time you're just walking through a forest wondering where the hell you are. I suppose Slender had this too, but I believe this map is way bigger than Slender's ever was. It did get a sequel, however, and I gotta say, it's a massive improvement. Slendytubbies 2. Okay, right off the bat, the first thing I have to give this game points for is the main menu music. Listen to this absolute banger.
Slendytubbies, uno, dos. Tryna get that custard, tryna get that applesauce.
So this game has 10 maps and 8 different monsters, and you now have a night vision camera. How about we do a little challenge for this game? I'm going to play all maps and see how many monsters I can break on my first playthrough. 8 different monsters, 1 point for every monster I can break. Alright.
Let's do this.
Starting off with the first one, Teletubbies' Secret Lair. This map takes place in a sewer and has these weird gray Teletubbies roaming around. It didn't take me long before I stumbled upon one, and he had this really annoying high-pitched scream.
Shut the fuck up.
I decided to make a run for it, but eventually walked into a dead end. After having come to terms with the fact that this was certain doom, I turned around and faced the monster head on. But after he reached me, he did this. Yo, what the fuck are you doing? It's just a prank, bro, you're on camera. Oh. I don't know, does this count as a break? Let's just count it as half a break. Next map, Teletubbies Secret Center. This map takes place in some sort of factory, and in it, Dipsy from the first game has come back to life to try and kill you with a chainsaw, headless. I spawned in, collected a couple of custards, walked upstairs and could already hear his chainsaw running. So I had to act fast and think of a way to break him.
I must break you.
It didn't take me long before I noticed these steel beams between the pillars. I was pretty sure Dipsy wouldn't be able to walk on them, so I checked if they had collision, and they did. And with that, my master plan was finished. All that was left to do was get Dipsy to chase me, so I went back to the stairs, and as soon as I heard his chainsaw revving, I made a run for it. I ran to my spot, and for a moment I actually thought he could walk on the beam as he went right up to it, but then he just stopped.
Stupid.
I could actually get him to walk in circles by walking to the front and the back of the beam over and over. My plan was a success. That's one monster broken. I offered myself up to him and moved on to the next map, Teletubby Lake. Once again the monster is Dipsy, except this time he's some sort of lizard-like creature. I suppose because it takes place in a lake? This map has a rain effect so bad it makes that of the GTA Definitive Edition look good, and that's really saying something. I searched far and I searched wide, but for the longest time I couldn't find Dipsy. I could hear him growling though. After about 5 minutes I eventually did find him. But he didn't seem all that interested in me. He just walked right up to me and then just stood there. Even when I walked right into him and he did attack me, it didn't do anything.
Bruh.
I think his model was just too tall and his attacks don't actually hit me. I had to literally jump into his mouth in order to die. The first version of Dipsy didn't even have a brain anymore, so he could be forgiven for acting a little dumb. But for this one, there's no excuse.
You stupid.
Anyway, I'd say that counts as another break. Next up, Satellite Station. The enemy on this map is Poe. I spawned in, walked for a bit, and it didn't take long before the perfect opportunity presented itself. I checked to see if I could jump on these boxes, which I could, and as luck would have it, there was Poe.
How convenient is that?
I got him to chase me, jumped on these boxes, and lo and behold, he stopped dead in his tracks.
Are you dumb? What, mate?
Wait a minute. That clicking. That color. Does Poe perhaps know? That way?
No, you know the way. You don't know the way. You doesn't know the way.
Anyway, that's another monster broke. The next map is called Teletubby Land. There's a day and a night version. It's a remake of the original map, except it looks a lot more abandoned and overgrown than it did in the first game. Oh, and the sky grid is gone too.
Nice.
This time, however, you play as Logan Paul, going into the forest with his camera.
I think there's someone hanging right there.
We found a dead body.
Yo, what the fuck is this? Tinky Winky has been pumping iron since the last game, Jesus. This is one of those guys that can't even scratch their own backs. Look at him. He can't even hit me because his attacks are too slow.
You're too slow.
If you just keep walking, you basically can't die. However, I was convinced that this roided out gorilla couldn't fit his ass down the slide. So I made my way over to the dome, jumped into the hole where the slide is, and yup, I was right. I purposely had to jump into a swing in order to die, so I'm definitely counting this one as another break. The next map is the exact same, just Teletubby Land again, except during the day, so I'm skipping that one. So we move on to Teletubby Outskirts. The monster here is Lala. The first thing I noticed was that this map has a lot of pillars and platforms, some of which you can only reach by jumping, which the monsters can't do. So right away I knew this was going to be an easy one.
Easy peasy lemon squeezy.
The hardest part was to actually find Lala. I looked around for a few minutes and eventually found her camping at one of the custards. I gotta say, the twitching does look pretty unnerving. So I got her to follow me, made my way back to the platforms, and I was expecting to have to put in a lot more effort, as the plan was to jump on this platform. But no, I jumped on this one, and that was enough. Which is kind of funny because that's literally one of the custard locations. So that means the monster can't even get to you in one of the locations you're supposed to go in order to complete the level.
You're a fucking idiot.
But anyway, just because something is easy doesn't mean it doesn't count.
That was easy.
So that's another point for the break counter. I tried to jump on top of her head, but I'm not Mario, so that didn't do shit. So I died and moved on to the next map, Teletubby Maze. And it's literally just a maze. I don't know how many monsters there are in this map, but there are multiple. Po was definitely one of them, as I could hear the clicking. At one point I walked into a dead end and could start to hear Po and the great Teletubby from the first map start screaming at me from the other side of the wall. I tried to keep going, but not long after I walked into another dead end and got trapped by Po. We seem to know the layout of this maze way better than I did, and I got killed. We're almost at the end now. The second to last map is Tubbycraft. Yeah, I'm not kidding. It's a Minecraft themed map, and Tinky Winky has a Minecraft skin.
Get the fuck out of my room! I'm playing Minecraft!
Right away I saw this structure and instantly knew what to do. I got MC Square to follow me, climbed to the top of this tree thing, and voila. Another one for the counter. And with that, we've come to the last map of this game, which is just the original Slendytubbies map again, with the same Tinky Winky from the first game. Even the sky grid is back, so it instantly felt like coming home after a long trip. So I did the exact same thing as I did in the first game. I made my way over to the dome, jumped into the window, but the only thing I forgot was to get Tinky Winky to follow me first. But I could see him standing in the distance with my camera, looking all lost and confused, so I'm gonna count it as another break. And with that said, we've played every map in Slendytubbies 2, finishing it off with a solid 7.5 out of 8 monsters broken on my first playthrough of each map.
Wow, incredible.
I think this game is definitely an improvement over the first game. There's a lot more map variety, and as long as you're not actively trying to break the game like I was doing for this video, I can promise you, you'll definitely get startled a few times.
Hello?
The monsters genuinely look terrifying as well, although I can't give it full credit for that, as most of the models were ripped from other games.
It's free real estate.
Po is a necromorph from Dead Space, Lake Dipsy is a regenerator from Resident Evil 4, Lala is a monster from an indie game called Donald, a horror story, and roided out Tinky Winky is the tank from Left 4 Dead 2. The map selection may seem a little bit random at first too, like what the fuck does a secret layer or a satellite station have to do with Teletubbies? Well, in comes Slendytubbies 3. No longer just a simple Slender clone, this game has an hour-long campaign with lore that ties all these maps and monsters together. It has dialogue options, puzzles, boss fights, and even multiple endings. So let's jump right into it. The game starts off with a bit of text, explaining that Teletubbies are created by machines that were made by the unknown. One of these Teletubbies, the Guardian Teletubby, who we play as, was specifically created to monitor a group of 4 test subjects. Those subjects being Tinky Winky, Dipsy, Lala, and Po. They also lived with an artificial intelligence machine named Nunu. We then get to play as Po, who's standing on the beach when Nunu comes up from behind, asking what we're doing and instructing us to go back inside and eat with the others. So that's what we do, but not before absolutely kicking the shit out of Lala's ball, launching it into oblivion for absolutely no reason whatsoever.
Dick!
We turn on the power and try to make custard, but the machine's broken. Our task now is to fix it while the rest just stands around doing nothing.
This is not right, this is not cool.
So that's what we do. We fix the machine, and guess what we get as a thank you for all that labor? We get to make custard for everyone.
Oh, hell no!
I swear to God, Dipsy has no shame. I just fixed this entire machine and he's like, could you please make a custard and hand it out to each of us? We're hungry. How about you get up your ass and do it yourself, you lazy bastard? Fortunately for Dipsy, however, Poe is way nicer than I am. So we hand everyone their custard and get to insult Lala for some reason. Yo, Poe is fucking ruthless, what the hell?
Emotional damage.
Everyone eats their custard and then...
Approximately 10 hours later.
Everyone is lying in bed when all of a sudden, Tinky Winky gets out and breaks the custard machine.
I can't believe you've done this.
We ask him what he's doing, but he doesn't respond and leaves. Now we're presented with our first choice. We get to choose between either waking up the others or going after Tinky Winky ourselves.
No, don't do it.
This choice has a big impact later on in the story, but I'll go over that when we get there. We choose to wake up the others and take Lala with us. Dipsy unsurprisingly decided to stay in bed in case Tinky Winky came back. Lazy piece of shit.
Where is your honor, dirtbag? You are an absolute disgrace.
So we go out and look for Tinky Winky together, but eventually decide to split up. We can't find him, however, so decide to regroup with Lala at the beach. But upon arriving, we find Tinky Winky standing next to Lala's corpse with her eyes scratched out.
Oh shit. Here we go again.
He turns around and then... We run back to the house, only to find Dipsy with his head chopped off. Tinky Winky catches up to us, and we're then put into a QuickTime event. Yeah, I'm not kidding. Yo, what the hell? This guy just jumped like 10 feet in the air and did a front flip. What the fuck? Also, this part is goofy as hell, look at it. Tinky Winky is standing in our way, and we just casually walk around him while he does absolutely nothing. He just stands there.
We've been trying to reach you concerning your car's extended warranty.
Eventually though, Tinky Winky catches us, and we then enter chapter 1, where we now take control of our main character, the Guardian Teletubby, who saw all this happen on his monitors and is determined to find out what was wrong with these custards. By the way, if you talk to Dipsy at the beginning of the game, he mentions that he lost his hat a long time ago, but the Guardian Teletubby is wearing it. Did he steal Dipsy's hat? And if so, why? Anyway, we tried to contact the satellite station for help, but get no response. Our plan now is to collect all of the infected custards and travel to the satellite station for help. So we solve a little puzzle, grab our night vision camera, and then suddenly the power cuts out, and we see these gray zombie-like Teletubbies walking through the halls. We make it to the exit stairs without them spotting us, and come out from under this rock. This is really the Guardian Teletubby?
No, this is Patrick.
We're now in the original Slendytubbies map, and we have to collect all the custards without Tinky Winky catching us.
Sweetie, Swooty, I'm coming for that booty.
Poe's body is still here, but Lala's and Dipsy's are now gone. After collecting all the custards, we run into Tinky Winky on the beach, who then consumes the last custards and turns it to the tank monster.
Damn, boy, he's thick.
We get the choice to escape through the mountains or the cave. I chose to go through the mountains, but I'll let you know what happens if you choose the cave as well. So we continue our journey through the snowy mountains until we're attacked by a Yeti Teletubby, who knocks us the fuck out.
I knocked the fuck out of you.
But he doesn't actually eat us right away, but instead instructs his robot slave to make sure we don't leave. Why does this Yeti monster have a robot slave, you may ask yourself? Well, the slave was supposed to kill the Teletubby who turned into the Yeti monster before he escaped the mainland. But after finding this Teletubby and realizing he had turned into a monster, he figured he had two choices: to serve or to be destroyed. He chose to serve and is now tasked with preventing us from leaving. Except he doesn't. When we leave, he doesn't even try to stop us at all. All he does is tell us that if we leave, he'll have to inform his master, who will then hunt down and kill us.
Okay.
We leave anyway, and not long after, the monster finds out we're gone and comes after us. We then have to play this little mini game that, although not very difficult, is pretty creative, which I can appreciate. The monster will yell, and you have to listen where the yelling is coming from and run into the opposite direction. We then come up on a gate which is locked by a chain. We find a pipe in a nearby cabin in the woods, break the chain, and are now ready to move on. We're now before picking our night vision camera back up, which now has a crack in it because of the fall from when we were knocked out. We then make our way through the gate and move on to the outskirts. If you chose to go through the cave instead of the mountains, you would have had to find your way through the caves, which are pretty much a maze. Throughout the cave you can find these pages that hint at the fact that there might be something in there with you. The further you get into the cave, the more that the text on these pages slowly becomes incoherent and eventually turns into complete gibberish and weird drawings. You also start finding these pages torn up and ripped apart. If you were to actually read all of them and put them in order, it would tell a story. The monster that's now in the caves with you used to be friends with the Yeti Teletubby from the mountains before they turned into monsters. The Yeti Teletubby was the first one that turned after both of them had eaten a custard, and the cave Teletubby went into the caves to hide from his infected friend. He started writing a journal, but because he had also consumed the custard, he too slowly started turning into a monster. Hence why the pages slowly start turning into incoherent gibberish the further you go into the cave. If you go far enough, you'll eventually encounter him and see the monster that he's become.
Prepared to die.
You then have to do another QuickTime event in order to escape, and if you do that successfully, you escape the cave and get to move on to the outskirts that way. Walking into the outskirts, you can already see the satellite station in the distance. You walk into these ruins and find more custards that you have to collect. This is also where the choice of going after Tinky Winky alone or taking Lala with you back at the mainland takes effect. If you chose to go look for Tinky Winky alone, Tinky Winky would have only killed Dipsy and Po, and Lala would have actually managed to escape, and you'd now find her sitting here next to a fire. She demands to know who you are.
Wait a minute. Who are you?
And you have the choice between either staying silent or confessing to her who you are and what your job was. If you choose to confess to her, you'll learn that every time one of the main 4 Teletubbies tried to leave the mainlands, their memories of what they had seen outside of it would be erased, and they'd be dragged back in.
Pranked! Ha! Got him!
Although rightfully angry, regardless of whether you tell her the truth or not, she eventually joins you when you go look for the remaining custards together. While collecting custards, Lala tells us that she's not feeling so good.
I don't feel so good.
This is because at the beginning of the game, Lala too had eaten a custard. After collecting all the custards, Lala sits down as she can no longer walk due to the pain from the custard she's consumed. Lala is about to turn into a monster. You have 2 choices before you move on to the satellite station. Put her out of her misery, or leave her and let her turn into a monster. If you leave her, this happens. And if you choose to put her out of her misery, you hit her on the head with a big rock. Either of these choices will kinda make you feel like a dick, but putting her out of her misery is probably the better option. If, however, you chose to wake up the others back at the mainland, which is what we did, and take them with you to look for Tinky Winky, and by them, I mean only Lala, as Dipsy is a lazy piece of shit, when you arrive at the outskirts, Lala will now already be a monster because Tinky Winky killed her on the beach.
You're ugly, you're disgusting, I'm gonna kill you, give me $200.
And because Tinky Winky scratched her eyes out, she's now blind and will only know where you are if you make too much noise. So we now have to collect the custards as quiet as possible while Lala is roaming around. After doing this successfully, she will be blocking the path to the satellite station. You have to throw a rock at these pillars, which tricks Lala into attacking them. This will cause the pillars to fall on top of her, leaving her trapped.
You're so dumb. You are really dumb.
We then get the same choice of either leaving her or putting her out of her misery. Me personally, I chose to bash her fucking head in with a rock. And after that, we finally get to move on to the satellite station, the final chapter of the game. We solve a little lever puzzle in order to open the doors, and we walk in. This base is supposed to be full of other Teletubbies, but when we walk in, there's nothing, except for a long, dark, quiet hallway. In case that wasn't enough indication that something ain't right, not long after entering, we stumble upon a dead body with a note next to it that says, "Get out before it's too late." Ooh, the suspense is building. So we keep walking, jump over a laser, find some more bodies, and eventually we run into a beaten up Teletubby named Ron. I find it really funny that the 4 main Teletubbies from the show have the most ridiculous names ever, like Tinky Winky and Lala, and then this asshole is just named Ron. Anyway, he tells us that a green headless monster carrying a chainsaw came into the station and started killing everyone. Ooh, who could that be? He instructs us to go into the secret center and contact the military. What, the Teletubbies have a military? Okay then. In order to access the secret center, we need a key card, which can be found on the other side of this door. But of course, it's locked, so we have to crawl through the fence to get to the other side. Once we come out of the fence, we can hear Ron getting killed with a chainsaw. While making our way over to the keycard, the Guardian Teletubby starts getting hallucinations of the Teletubbies before they turn into monsters. We grab the keycard, make our way back through the vents, and when we come out, we see that Dipsy turned Ron into a sussy baka. We proceed to make our way to the secret center, but on our way there, we get another hallucination. this time of Dipsy. Except plot twist, it's not a hallucination. It's the real Dipsy, and he is absolutely pissed at the Guardian for stealing his hat, so this is personal to him. We run away as Dipsy chases us and make our way back to the beginning where the laser was. We jump over it, but Dipsy doesn't and gets blown up. His chainsaw somehow still works though, so we pick it up.
Say hello to my little friend!
We make our way into the secret center, and there, we find the mastermind behind this entire operation. Who could possibly be so evil, so heartless, to be able to turn these poor, innocent Teletubbies into these mindless abominations? Well, ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you. It's Nunu. I should have known. You suck, Nunu. Get it? Because he's a vacuum? I'm sorry. He reveals to us that he infected the main custard supply with a virus that turns Teletubbies into undead monsters that mutate over time. He did this because he thinks Teletubbies are weak because they are limited by their emotions, and by turning them into undead, or newborns as he calls them, he's removing these limits. He also tells us that he's hacked into the central artificial intelligence mainframe and controls all machines now. He says it is now time for us to die, and then leaves. How does this dude even go up the stairs? Look at him. How?
Wait.
We are then left with this shower head looking thing again, who then, oh my god, what is this? The thing turns into a fucking transformer and we're then put into a boss fight. I thought this was a horror game, what the hell happened? It's got everything you expect from a boss fight. You can attack, block, sprint, roll, and you even have a stamina bar. You can also regain health by picking up these green orbs that randomly drop on the ground. There's also a rock song playing during the fight with lyrics and everything that I unfortunately can't play because I believe it's copyrighted. As out of place as this boss fight is, I have to admit, I honestly had a lot of fun fighting this thing. After defeating it, we contact the military and make our way outside, where we once again confront Nunu. He tells us he's impressed that we managed to defeat the announcer, but that there's no way of stopping him.
Are you sure about that?
As he also infected the machines that created Teletubbies with the virus, and that there's an army of newborns flooding the lands as we speak. We are then presented with two options. We can either join Nunu, or we can tell him to go suck it. That's another vacuum joke. There are actually 4 endings to this game. I'm gonna go over all of them, but let me go over the true ending first. After rejecting Nunu's offer to join him, he summons Po, who is now also a newborn, and you are once again put into a boss fight. And a long one at that, as this one has 3 phases. The first phase is just Po in her normal form, but at around 2/3 of her health left, she turns into the monster with blades that we saw in Slendytubbies 2. In her last phase, which starts at around 1/3 of her health left, she turns into this crab, scorpion-looking monster. After killing Po, we walk over to Nunu and cut him in half. By the way, this chainsaw has to be made out of fucking vibranium or something. Dipsy went on a killing spree with it, it survived an explosion, we cut up a robot completely made out of metal, we fought 3 different forms of Po, we cut a vacuum in half which was also made out of metal, and this thing is still running. A normal chainsaw gets damaged by hitting the dirt, what the hell? Anyway, after taking out Nunu, the military arrives and we are greeted by Sergeant Miles. We try to explain the situation to him, but as we're doing that, one of his soldiers tells us to come and take a look at something he saw. We walk up a hill, and then... And that's the true ending of the Slendytubbies 3 campaign. Let me go over the other endings real quick. The second ending happens when you die to Po during the boss fight. Shortly after Po kills you, the military still arrives, but all they find is the Guardian's body as Nunu and Po are already gone. As they try to figure out what happened, an army of newborns makes their way over the hill and attacks the military. They try to fight off the newborns, but are quickly overrun. The third ending happens when you choose to join Nunu. He takes you to the custard factory and instructs you to jump into the main infected custard supply. If we do, we turn into a newborn. If you join Nunu but refuse to jump into the custard supply, the fourth ending happens. Po will cut off your legs and drop you in anyway, turning you into a crawler. And with that, we've completed the Slendytubbies trilogy. I find it pretty awesome that this simple Slender parody, that I doubt was made to really be taken seriously, managed to evolve itself into a completely different series with different gameplay styles and its own lore. Like I said at the beginning of this video, there's more to the Slendytubbies franchise than just these 3 games. There's the 2D version of Slendytubbies. Slendytubbies 3 has multiplayer with multiple modes, such as a horde survival mode and an infected mode where players get to play as the monsters. There's also a series of short videos that take place immediately after the ending of Slendytubbies 3, but that series was never finished. Recently, Slendytubbies Worlds was released, which ZeoWorks said will be the last installment in the franchise. It's a multiplayer-oriented game where you get to create your own custom character, except it has a much more innocent art style from the rest of the game. Overall, I think Slendytubbies is a pretty awesome franchise. Of course, not all games are masterpieces, but it's amazing how a series made by one guy that started out as nothing more than a simple Slender clone managed to grow into a unique experience with its own dedicated fanbase, with people still playing the games to this day, 11 years after the original Slendytubbies came out. It even managed to outlive Slender Man himself, and with Slendytubbies Worlds out now, I'm sure people will keep playing the games for at least a few more years. If you're still here, thank you so much for watching. Be sure to like and subscribe, and hopefully I'll see you in a future video. But for now, I'm out. Later, people.